Welcome back, guys. Today we have a Team Blue Flare deck profile for you. I have got to say, I have extremely underestimated this deck. This is actually really strong, and I could definitely see how it takes a lot of tops in Asia, although not as many tops as Cross Hearts, but this is actually still really strong. I'll go over the weaknesses and stuff I've noticed after playtesting this for a little while now, so let's get right into it. All right, so we got 5 eggs. I got 1 Upamon, 4 Baby Dramon. Both are draw eggs. You could do 4 Upamon, 1 Baby Dramon. The reason I chose to do 1 Upamon is this deck doesn't really start off with a lot of stuff that, trash sources. So, you have to trash the source, or your opponent has to hard play their like rookies, searchers, etc. to really get this off. As Baby Dramon just needs for your opponent to have 2 Digimon, and since this deck does just stun your opponent's Digimon once they have them out, you stun them, they got to put out new fresh Digimon, so they're more likely to have multiple Digimon early that they want to attack with. But either or, I've seen decks with 4 Upamon and 1 Baby Dramon, and I've seen decks with 4 Baby Dramon and 1 Upamon. This is just the way I chose to go. All right. Next, we have our rookies. We have 10 rookies. It is a little bit thinner than I like. I normally like to play 14 rookies, but this style of deck actually just hard plays your champions because that's what your key pieces are made of. And you're supposed to be drawing into them, and a lot of the decks in Asia, actually all of them, play the 4 security Blucomon, which we don't have yet. The security Blucomon, if you don't know what it does, you essentially, if it's triggered in security, you draw 2, and then you add it to hand. I'm playing the 4 Jamming Vmon because it's a good substitute. This deck is actually kind of weak against the style of decks we've been seeing in BT09, where it's essentially 1 stack OTKs. They built a Alphamon stack, a Metal Garurumon stack, a Wargreymon stack, etc. This deck is actually extremely weak to that, so to combat this, you really need to start forcing your opponent to use memory for stuff they wouldn't otherwise. So for example, if you start swinging at them early, gives them less time to build the thing in the back, so they have to react faster. So they'll be playing Digimon on the field to, take care of this, or be spending the memory on options or something to get rid of this. So this is just to force your opponent to really react to it, so you can, basically get them to play the cards out on the board that you want. Then we have 2 of the Star Deck Vmon. Obviously not for this, it's for the inherited, to if you have 7 or fewer cards in your hand, draw 1. I like this just for the draw. I might switch it to the Gabumon on play draw. I'm not sure yet. It's just because I like evolving and drawing, and this deck doesn't do that too much. And the draw is kind of important, is a very important aspect of this game. And there are times where I realize I don't need the effects from the level 4s. For example, sometimes I end up with extra male Bergermon in hand and I have no target for it to use. So rather than just playing it for a hard 5 cost, I could play a Vmon for the 3, evolve it for the 2, and still get a draw off of it, rather than just, playing the male Bergermon. So that's why I threw this in. I really did come to situations where actually, if I did hard play this, I would actually prefer to hard play the 3 cost Gabumon. So maybe consider that one. Maybe consider adding 4 of those. I know a lot of people play Madoki Betamon, stuff like that instead. I personally just want the draw because I want this deck to be a little more consistent. 4 Gaussmon. This is the MVP of the rookies. Another reason, to rush your opponent, like you play it out, swing. It's more than likely going to die unless it crashes into a tamer. It is only 1k, but you want it to get deleted. This way you can play a level 4 for free, suspended. So there are times where I really don't want to play the male Bergermon, and I have the tamer in hand, or hard play any of the level 4s, because, they cost a little much to hard play. So if I swing, it dies. There are a lot of times where early game, I open this, swing, it dies, play the male Bergermon to play the tamer, and then I essentially played the tamer for free and got a male Bergermon, which if it dies, you can save it. So this is actually really good. There have been games where I had multiple of these out, and then like I would swing, it died, play like Decadramons. I played against a Jessamon deck, played the Decadramon, and they had a bunch of Sistermon out. My Decadramon essentially let me draw like 5 for each Decadramon. All right, but yeah, that was, I did play test a little bit. So let's go into my champions. I am playing the 2 Leomon. Again, talking about the weaknesses of this deck, it really does lose kind of hard if you're not prepared against those tall decks. Those tall decks generally have just enough attacks to finish you, to go for game in a single turn, which is why I like the Leomon blocker. You are playing a lot of Tamers, obviously, so you're going to get the blocker. And then on deletion, gain 2 memory, draw a card. Pretty good. Just another draw card. All right, then you got your blue flare package. You got your 4 Greymons. The Searchers, on play, top 4. Grab 2 blue flares. They have save, and then it's inherited. You can unsuspend if your opponent has 2 or more Digimon. And the attribute of whatever it digivolves into is blue flare. What I really like about it is only a 4 cost to hard play. That does come in a lot since you are hard playing a lot of your champions. Next, you got 4 Decadramon. On play, draw 1. Then you draw 1 for each Digimon your opponent has in play. That's really good. The inherited for an extra 1,000 hasn't really come up all that much. But mainly the draw, so you can draw a lot of your one-ofs or your outs. So this is kind of important for that. Then you got your 4 male Bergermon on play. If you have the Tamer out, you can basically recycle a Metal Greymon. Actually, this can also recycle the Metal Greymon. And then if you don't have the Tamer out, you can play the Tamer. And then it's inherited. If your opponent has 2 or more Digimon in play, you can, and when it swings, you can prevent one of their Digimon from attacking or blocking. So it's another stun card. This is extremely good. Male Bergermon, extremely good. Extremely key piece to this deck. Then everybody plays 2 of the red Security +1 Greymon. These are the promo versions. So it essentially does the same number of damage as if this one was underneath, but this one would only do 2 damage if your opponent has 2 Digimon out on the board. So you can swing with Metal Greymon with Rush, 1 damage, unsuspend, swing for another one. This is just another way to get that 2nd damage. So instead of swinging twice, just swing once for 2 damage. And you can save it. You can save it if it's under the material. Kumamon, this is, yeah, hybrid, Trashosaurus, not really that important. I've been mainly using it for finishers. But, if it came up where you can't finish your opponent and you needed something out, yeah, it's just there. There was a game that was really funny. It lasted a long time. So I had gotten a bunch of Digimon saved under the Tamers and then evolved into Kumamon and then evolved Kumamon into like Metal Greymon. And then I had all the Digi-save effects because it's still triggered because it was off the blue flare. That only happened once, but I thought I'd mention it just because that can work that way if you wanted to. But it's only for long games where you just ended up saving so many sources underneath your Tamers. All right, as this deck doesn't really go to level 6, here are 7 level 5s. There are deck profiles I've seen that plays, Magnamon X Antibody. They play like 2 or 3 copies. There have been decks I've seen that play Hexablau. Other than those 2, I don't really think there are any other megas that people really mix with this deck. But your key level 5 is this guy. You essentially get to play him for 4 because you can Digicross with Greymon and Male Bergermon to reduce it by 4. So it's a 3 cost, but it has Rush. And then it also stuns your opponent, 3 of your opponent's Digimon that have equal or less sources than this card. So it can actually stun your opponent's board essentially. And then with Male Bergermon, you can stun another card. So essentially get 4 cards stunned, which is amazing. You can use these to stun the little things, and then Male Bergermon's effect to stun something that has a bunch of sources because you haven't been able to get rid of them yet. 3 Deckard Greymon. This hasn't come in handy as much. In fact, I've only gone into him like maybe once or twice, to be honest. He does have Armor Purge on play or when Digivolving. I mainly used it when Digivolving because the on play, you're still going to be paying 5, which is kind of heavy. But yeah, you place 1 Digimon with Blue Flare in his trash from your hand or from under one of your tamers underneath this thing. So you can get an extra like Greymon or something. You don't have to get an extra unsuspend on this. You don't have to go for Decadramon, but if you do go for Decadramon, you get to stun one of your opponents. This deck is essentially like blue hybrids on steroids. Like you can actually stun your opponent's entire board every single turn. Next we have 4 Curios. Yeah, I like it better than the red deck. Although the red deck plays more tamers, it's for more consistency. I always worry about Death Xmon right now, so I don't like having that many tamers out. So I rather have it all built into one, where Kira is the memory tamer, and then when you would play a Digimon with Digicross, you could suspend him and then place those cards from underneath your tamers as the Digivolution cards for Digicross. But you got to remember that it doesn't necessarily have to be under Cura, which is the important part. So, for example, it does come in handy because there are decks now, Black or Greymon, Dark Knightmon, that kills tamers. Although this is the card that enables those sources to really be used, you don't also want to lose this card and your Digisave sources. So I've been, if I have both out, I would put them underneath like Joe and Sora, just in case they pop this. This way I would still have the material saved. This way, next time I can play a Cura, I would still have the material saved. But if they pop the Cura with the material save underneath, I lose both. So I like to keep them separate. 3 Joe and Soras, or Sora and Joe. Trash sources, and it stacks. That's the best part about it. So you can build up a bunch of memory, and you definitely need it. You definitely need a lot of memory, especially if you're going to be hard playing level 4s every time. So that's why this card is just extremely good in this deck. All right, Blazing Memory Boost. I have a really mixed feelings about this card. You can add Blazing Memory Boost off of Blazing Memory Boost. It just says add 2 cards with blue flare from the top 6. And then if you happen to hit Christopher, you can play it. I've played this card so much. I've hit Christopher less than a quarter of the time, to be honest. I don't know if I'm just unlucky with that, but you need this card to grab sources or grab material. You basically need it to grab your pieces. So you still got to play it. I hate going first with this deck because of all the big cost that you'll be playing. If you open up your hand and this is one of your only choices to really play, you play it and your opponent basically gets 5, right? They can go into Mega with 5, their rookie for free, then their champion for 2, then their ultimate for 3, and then they can end up with a Mega just because you started your turn with this. And you really don't have much of a choice because, if you don't play that many rookies, and you have to be hard playing your level 4s. So your level 4s are almost all 5 cost or more, except Metal Greymon. If I see a Metal Greymon, I'll play it, just if it's my only choice. The last few options I have, I'm thinking of tossing an Ice Wall in here. I just don't know where to cut, what to cut, and where to cut. Forbidden Trident, didn't really understand why every deck in Asia had 1 copy of this until I started playing. Okay, this deck actually can get stopped by Solar Mons, from reducing play costs for your Digicross, can get stopped by Madoki Betamon, Terriermon, etc. Those things or Gazimon, stops from memory. You really just need the 1 turn to go off. So you want to have one of these to activate and then bounce one of your opponent's level 3. So bounce the Madoki, bounce the whatever, and then just build your board before it comes back out. Came in handy a lot. So definitely got to play 1. 2 Howling Memory Boosts, trashing extra sources, stunning those larger stacks, or getting rid of those larger stacks that, it's just not enough to trigger off of, to stun off of Metal Greymon. So this is actually really good. Plus, memory boost. So, yeah. And 2 Innocent Blizzards for now. I would prefer to be playing the Sorai when EX03 comes out, where it's an extra cost, but it charges 4 off of one source, so I would actually be able to cut, Howling Memory Boost out, as well as Innocent Blizzard to replace with the 2 Sorai. But it also, instead of just stunning 3, it would stun everything your opponent has that has no Digivolution source. So that is actually so much better. But yeah, I gotta admit, this deck has some flaws currently, as in, if you can't, if it goes against certain types of decks, but you have to find a way to play around it, which is why I tossed in a lot of these special, like for example, the Jamming Vmon, the Leomon, making the edits and stuff. But it is actually still really good, especially against decks of the current set. So if you're going against decks that got support in BT10, for example, Jessmon, going against the Cross Heart decks, Dark Knightmon, etc., this tech is actually still really good against all of those. It does fall a little bit against those taller decks, but hopefully, thankfully, we're not really seeing too many of those taller decks in the current format. If they do go taller, they also tend to build a little bit wider as well, which you definitely want them to have more Digimon out on the field to stun, so you get to trigger a lot more things. All right, let me know what you think. If you have any suggestions to upgrade the deck, let me know. Leave it in the comments. Thanks for watching.